r/ProRevenge.
Landlord thinks I owe 8 months of rent, didn't know I knew tenant laws. Okay, not sure this goes here, but here it goes. This took place during the middle of 2018. Me, my wife and 3 kids were looking for a new place to rent because our current renter was selling and had given us a 60 notice to move. During this time my wife's mother had a friend, let's call him Sam. Sam had a 4-bedroom 2-bath house that he was in the middle of remodeling to get ready to sell. Because of this, certain parts of the house, like some of the walls, weren't fully painted and some of the floors were old. At the current time my family really needed a place to stay and our budget wouldn't allow us to rent any places over $1,000 a month. Keep in mind I am a disabled veteran and have a lot of time to sit and research things when I need to. First part, signing the lease and getting the keys. During the lease signing we went over to the house for Sam to point out all the things that were being worked and what things weren't complete when we were moving it. For example, the kitchen floor was being replaced, the kitchen counter, carpet was being added throughout the whole house, currently all wood floors. When we got there we pointed out that there was still trash all over the floor and bug traps all over the ground. He assured us that it would all be cleaned before we moved in. So we hand over our deposit and sign the lease for $1,000 a month. He says that he is going on vacation out of state and won't be back for 6 months, but that contractors will be stopping by to work on the house. He leaves me a list of the work that is going to be done and we wait. Move-in date. 3 days later we are given the go-ahead that we are able to move in and that he will be back in 6 months. We arrive at the house to find his 2 cars and motorcycle in the driveway with nowhere but the street for us to park. This becomes very important later in court. The house is still just as dirty as the day we signed the lease. But with us really needing a place to stay, me and my wife just take pictures and note everything wrong and get to cleaning. Now remember, this was a 4-bedroom 2-bathroom house, however the owner left so much stuff in the house that the 4th bedroom was filled from wall to wall with junk. We decided to just close that door and not use the room. Keep in mind that because we didn't have access to the room because of the owner/landlord, we were allowed to deduct that room from the rent. This deduction of rent becomes a pattern soon. Living there. Now we lived there a total of 9 months. During the first 6 months we tried to get a hold of the landlord by phone with a way to pay rent. But we never got a reply from him after the day we got the keys. So everything that went wrong we just kept track of. Place had bugs, nails sticking out of the floors and many other hazards. Finally, on the 7th month Sam returns from his vacation out of state and retrieves one of the cars in the drive. Tells us he's sorry for not responding and tells us we will figure out the rent and fixing my issues over the next week. On month 8 I still haven't paid him anything, as I sent him a letter stating that I would be withholding rent until the safety issues with the house are fixed. Where we live, this is legal. During this time, instead of just fixing the issues and then getting rent from me, we are served with an eviction notice. Keep in mind we have kept record of everything wrong with this house, including everything to code. Time in court. First red flag in the eviction is the copy of the lease that was attached. It was an altered copy of the original I still had, so the documents didn't even match. So let's do a little math. Each month I withheld rent. I gave a detailed invoice of all the charges I'm reducing the rent by. I send all of this in the return on the eviction, and guess who shows up to the house 5 days before court? You bet it's Sam. He starts yelling at the front door telling me to give him my debit card so that he can go get my rent out right now. I calmly tell him that even though he is the owner/landlord, that under the current laws he must give me a 24-hour notice before being on the property unless it is an emergency. I call the cops so that I can document that he showed up and tried to scare me into giving him money on the spot. 5 days later we show up at court and his lawyer walks over to me and presents me with a deal. He tells me that his client, Sam, would like to just have me move out in 2 weeks and call the debt even. I tell no thank you and we can talk about it with the judge. I present everything on my part, 100 of photos and invoices from each month about my rent reduction. Plus all the safety violations. 1 room no access, $250 per month x 9 months. 2 work cleaning and taking care of pool, was in lease to have pool guy never showed, $100 per month x 9 months. 3 lawn care, also in lease to be provided, $50 per month x 9 months. 4 storage for 1 motorcycle, $25 per day x 9 months. 5 storage for 1 car, 55 per day x 9 months. 6 storage for 1 car, 55 per day x 7 months, he picked this one up after vacation. Safety violations, no CO2 detector in the house, no working smoke alarms, all windows are supposed to have screens, most were broken or missing, because of pool and no fence around it, back door needed alarm to beep when opened, county safety code. Exposed wires on most electric outlets, ceiling fans not installed but wires just exposed, improper foundation for rear stairs leading out back door, no license for enclosed backyard room, had a 30 feet by 20 feet area off back door which was enclosed by a screened area, county required a license for anything that was attached to the house. Also, the pilled up junk in the 4th bedroom was considered a fire hazard. Now I pick the rate per day to store the vehicles at the house because legally I could have had them towed off the property even though they are the owners. This is the rate the impound lot would have charged per a day the vehicle was in lot. This added up to a total invoice of $36,750, the $9,000 owed for rent leaving $27,750 owed. After hearing both sides, the judge ruled in my favor, giving my landlord 3 options. 1. He could pay me $9,999 max allowed in small claims court here and I would have 7 days to be off of the property. 2. He could give me a normal 30 notice to vacate and I wouldn't pay anything and he would return my deposit in full within 24 hours after keys are returned. Or 3. I could continue to live there but no rent would be owed until all safety issues were fixed and his stuff on the property removed. He chose to go with option 2. On a side note, found out from my wife's mother about a year after we moved out some of the shady upgrades he did to the house caused a house fire and burned down. This wasn't anything I did but it felt so good to know that karma gets you in the end. Edit. Notice something in one of my comments that I pointed out that Sam was doing upgrades. He didn't start doing these said upgrades until after I had submitted my response to the eviction. My response had to have everything I was showing in court, so his lawyer was shown all the safety issues and all that pictures. Basically, he wanted to fix everything right before court and then say that the house had no issues.
A response to the post.
It's so important to know your rights. When I still rented, I managed to stop rent increase, which happens yearly, because of lacking, and agreed upon, improvements. I was a wee lad, but arranged it without any help. Although you could call the lack of preparation of the owner at the hearing very helpful. It saved a fair bit of money for 3 years, in a time when I just started working, so could really use that.
OP's response to this comment.
Yeah, after the start of the first month there I started looking very deep into tenant laws in my county. The withholding rent part really saved me in the end, as long as I had proof of everything I was doing and proof of everything the landlord/owner wasn't doing, I was in the right.